This video is sponsored by Blinkist. So this will probably come as no surprise to you, but I am a voracious reader. I read almost every day, mostly nonfiction because I love learning about how the world works and how I fit into it. But you guys, there are a lot of books out there, especially nonfiction. I can't read them all, which is where Blinkist comes in. They have a library of more than 5,000 nonfiction titles in 27 different categories where they pull out key takeaways and ideas and put them into short, 15-minute text and audio explainers to help you understand powerful ideas quickly. Of course, I was immediately drawn to the nature and environment section, where I found a great rundown of Rachel Carson's seminal environmental work, Silent Spring. Her writing on chemical pesticides and the need to have a better relationship with the natural world are key pillars of my own environmental philosophy. So if you're looking to get inspired and understand some of the world's best nonfiction titles, click the link in my description for a free 7-day trial and 25% off a Blinkist premium membership. Thanks again to Blinkist for sponsoring this video, and now on with the show. Let's talk about dunes. No, like sand dunes. No, like the Great Sand Dunes of Colorado. No, like the national park, Great Sand Dunes National Park. Chalamet fans, I love ya. I love ya boy, but we talk about parks on this channel, so you can spread your Chalamet love in the comments. I'll allow it. For now though, let's talk about Colorado's Great Sand Dunes National Park and Preserve. This park protects the tallest sand dunes in North America and one of the most complex dune systems in the world. The tallest dune here, Star Dune, rises 750 feet, nearly 230 meters, from its base to its crest. The dunes were originally protected as a national monument in 1932, but were redesignated as a national park and preserve in 2004. The park is also incredibly diverse, protecting more than just the dunes themselves. You'll find alpine and tundra habitats here, along with forests, grasslands, wetlands, and more. Which is just as well, because the dunes here don't grow to their considerable height all on their own. They rely on a complex system of factors and processes. All parts in the system are connected and they all work together to make these dunes as high as they are. So the fact that Great Sand Dunes National Park protects this entire system is a really good thing, because that means the dunes themselves are protected also. Alright, let's dive into it. You got your basic elemental processes here at Great Sand Dunes. Earth, wind, water, and fire. Wait, no, there's no fire involved here, unless you count the volcanoes, but I'm not really counting the volcanoes because they're not super important to the story. Anyway, we'll just stick with earth, wind, and water for now. But there are volcanoes if you're interested in that sort of thing. No, but we'll start off with earth and the formation of two important mountain ranges. To the west of the park, you've got the San Juan Mountains, which are primarily volcanic in origin. See, I told you they were volcanoes. To the east, and encompassing parts of the park itself, you've got the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. After these mountains uplifted, a broad, flat valley remained between them, the San Luis Valley. This is the setting for our story. The dune field and most of its encompassing parts lie within this valley. Now, all of this happened a long time ago, and the San Luis Valley doesn't look today like it did back then. No, in fact, the valley was home to a large lake, Lake Alamosa. At its largest, Lake Alamosa covered a surface area of 1,500 square miles, or 4,000 square kilometers. That's bigger than the US state of Rhode Island. So you've got Lake Alamosa sitting in the San Luis Valley, bounded on the west by the San Juan Mountains and bounded on the east by the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. Both mountain ranges are depositing large amounts of water and sediment into the lake. This sediment is important. We'll come back to it. But Lake Alamosa started getting a little too big for its britches. The rocks at its southern boundary eventually gave way, and they're like the things, keeping it in a lake shape. So Lake Alamosa starts to drain and eventually empties, leaving behind just a couple of smaller lakes here and there, but nothing like the large body of water it once was. But that sediment is still flowing in. The San Juans and Sangre de Cristos are still depositing sediment into the valley floor. Now eventually, even those tiny lakes dry up, leaving behind all that sediment. This is the origin of what we today call the sand sheet. Now, this is a good time to talk about the 4 main areas of the dune system here at Great Sand Dunes National Park. You've got the mountain watershed. This is the part of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains that receives all that alpine precipitation and drains it down toward the second area, the dune field. The dune field is, you guessed it, where the dunes are. It's 30 square miles, or 78 square kilometers, and contains 1.5 cubic miles, or 6.5 billion cubic meters of sand. That is enough sand to fill 2.5 million Olympic-sized swimming pools. But that's not even the best part, because the next component of the dune system, the one we've already talked about, knocks that figure out of the water. The sand sheet contains 90% of the sand in the entire system. That's right, the dune field itself contains only 10% of the sand in this system. I'll let you work out for yourself how many swimming pools you can fill. Now, the sand sheet may have a lot of sand, but it's not characterized by the big, tall dunes like in the actual dune field. The sand sheet is more of a vegetated grassland, but it's where the dunes themselves actually start off before they migrate in to play with the big kids. The sand sheet surrounds the dune field on 3 sides, constantly supplying it with the sand it needs to replenish itself. And lastly, beyond the sand sheet, you've got an area known as the sabkha. The sabkha is characterized by a crusty layer of sand that is formed when surface water evaporates away and leaves behind a salt which cements the sand grains together. You won't find a lot of dunes here. But let's get back to the ones you will find and how they're formed. So the remnants of Lake Alamosa have dried up, leaving behind a nice large pile of sand, the sand sheet. This is where our dunes start to form. Because of the orientation of the San Luis Valley, the predominant winds in this area blow in from the southwest toward the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. And of course, as they do that, they blow the sand in that direction as well. Now, sand grains are tailor-made for this. They're the perfect size. Too big and they wouldn't blow at all, too small and they'd just be lifted away. No. Instead, sand grains are just light enough to be picked up by the wind, but just heavy enough to not be carried away in the air. They kind of just bounce and roll along the surface until they find a stopping point, which in this case is the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. These mountains were kind enough to develop a nice little pocket for all the sand grains to collect in as they blow in from the southwest. So again, southwesterly winds blow all this sand from the sand sheet towards the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, where it starts to accumulate. Eventually, the sand just builds up on itself, forming dunes. But wait, there's more. Yeah, that's not all that's happening here. At the same time as these winds are blowing in all this sand from the southwest, storm winds from the mountains themselves blow down from the northeast, the exact opposite direction. These winds then blow the sand right back in the direction it came from. But the southwesterly winds are still blowing, of course, and the effect is that the sand grains migrate vertically. That's right, these so-called bimodal winds are what push the dunes upward, contributing to their great height. These sort of environments where wind-blown sediment is the dominant process are known as aeolian environments. But wait, there's more. Yeah, sorry, we're still not done. We've talked about earth and we've talked about wind. Now let's talk about water. See, draining off of the Sangre de Cristos are 2 seasonal streams, Sand Creek and Medano Creek. Sand Creek runs along the dune field to the northwest, while Medano Creek straddles it along the east. These creeks are responsible for a process called sand recycling. Essentially, these creeks, running along the boundaries of the dune field, pick up sand near the mountains and deposit it further back in the dune field, where the southwesterly winds can once again act upon it and blow it toward the mountains. These streams quite literally replenish the dune field and allow the dunes to maintain their massive height. Scientists speculate that if these creeks were to disappear, the dunes would spread themselves over a larger area but not be as tall. For now though, they are that tall. Maybe not the tallest in the world, but the tallest in North America, and certainly some of the most complex. All of the factors at play here, the wind, the creeks, the ready supply of sand, means you can find all sorts of dunes here. You got reversing dunes, star dunes, parabolic dunes, Barkin dunes, transverse dunes, Nebka dunes.
That's about it.
But dune types and Forrest Gump references aside, this is an incredibly rich and diverse geological environment, and it's protected here for us to see it and to enjoy it. Not just the dunes themselves, but the whole system. The whole system that makes the dunes possible. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. This video was chosen by my patrons over on patreon.com/nationalparkdiaries. Not only can you choose the videos I make on this channel, but I also have a Discord. I'll give you exclusive updates on my national park travels and give you advice on your own trips, and I have a book club. So if those things are to your liking, that's again patreon.com/nationalparkdiaries. If not, that's okay too. You can like this video and subscribe to the channel for more park stories. It helps me reach a bigger audience and helps me teach more people about parks. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.